Containment Episode 7, Inferno. Now, this episode I thought was definitely a pretty crazy episode. We actually lost two characters in this one. Neither of them were main characters, but, one of which I didn't care about. If you saw my other reviews, the two guys that are with Jana and her friend, I just don't care about them, because they were always just, being dicks to me, so I was just like, I think I said even in the last review, I was like, I don't really care if they die. So one of them does die. I don't remember either of their names, to be totally honest. I don't even remember Jana's friend's name, even though I should. But, we have one of the guys, he gets killed. His idea was, hey, why don't we negotiate with the people, which, of course, is a stupid idea. He's going against everyone. It wasn't both of them, but, it was still one of the two guys who's always, one of them always has something to say that's a bad idea. So his stupid plan was, why don't we go down there and, work with them and stuff like that. And of course that ends up getting him killed, which I thought was an interesting little moment. And we actually have a guy hide inside of the elevator, which you'd think they would, just a bunch of them would be in the elevator, because if they all had a bunch of weapons, they could just, hit the windows instead of sending one random person in. I don't know why they would do it that way, but, the one guy goes in, and he's automatically dying. He's already dying as he's trying to, get through the sluice. So he dies off, so they kind of have to wait, to go out that way now, at least for a little bit. And with Jake there, I assume, maybe, they didn't show it, but I'm sure he could have mentioned, hey, the virus dies after, 2 hours or a couple hours or whatever. So eventually they'll have to, clear that guy out, unless they don't care about having, just random dead bodies, just hanging out in front of the elevator. But even before that, we have really things pick up in this episode right after the last one. So we have Teresa's mom, come up on the elevator with the guy, and of course they actually let him in, because the threat is well, I'm going to kill her now. So they let him in. He gets the phone. Jake fortunately shows up at the right time. I'm assuming he took the stairs that they were talking about, which they never mentioned before, which I would have thought would have been a big deal before, because they knew, they mentioned, they kind of introduced the tweakers 3 episodes ago, and they never mentioned that there were stairs that could be accessed from the roof and stuff like that. I never even thought about it. I just assumed, I guess when Jana went up to the roof, I guess I kind of just thought she maybe took the elevator to the top floor and just maybe have done something like that. But I never really thought, they're taking stairs and stuff, but it's not really secure. We find out in this episode, it's kind of just wide open. They had to take it has a security code on it, so I guess it's fairly secure. But I don't know, they never even mentioned it before, so I was like, oh, there are other stairs. So I don't know where Jake came from, actually, because they showed that the door had a lock on it. You had to put in the numbered code. So I don't know where he came from, now that I think about it, because he wasn't on the elevator. But he shows up, saves everybody. Once again, I don't know why they did it this way, but they wrote the character of Jake where every time he's in one of these situations, he never takes anybody's guns. He didn't take it with the hillbilly people, and I mentioned before, he really should have taken their guns, which of course they came back in the next episode. And then the same thing with this one. He's dealing with the guy in the gang. It's he's already going back to where he came from. It's not he's not going to say this is exactly what happened. Just take the gun from him. And so it annoyed me a little bit. He's get out of here and stuff. Just get the gun from him. He's a criminal if you had to shoot him, which you probably wouldn't have to, because obviously he didn't want to be shot. That's why he let the mom go. So he probably would have given up the gun anyway. And it's just he never seems to be put the gun down or anything. He's just alright, get out of here. And it's he just lets people walk away with guns all the time in the worst situations. But it doesn't really matter, because it seemed like that guy was dead on the stairs. I think that's the guy that Jana tripped over or something, because he had a bullet in his head, I think. So it wasn't the guy that Jake stabbed in the neck. It was, I guess, the other guy. I don't really know if it was him or not, because it was a dark little scene. But things get really crazy in this episode, and they have to all defend themselves. And it's we have people going through the vents and stuff like that, which also seems highly unlikely, but I guess the other floors might not be as secure as their floor, because I'm they can't just they'd have to climb up. I guess they're on the 8th or ninth floor or something like that, because they showed the elevator dinging, and it was showing 6, 7, and 8. So they're on the ninth, or maybe the ninth or 10th floor or something like that. So the other floors would have to be fairly unsecure for any of those people to get into the vents, unless they did go like all the way up to the roof. And I guess clearly that's been unlocked, with Sam living up there. So maybe that's how they did it. But it was like they just found all sorts of ways to get in there. They have to beat up one guy who, or they almost have to beat up a bunch of people that get in, and then Jana uses basically like a flamethrower and torches them a little, and then they have all the people come in through the door after they finally get the power back on, which kind of leads us to a moment with Jana's friend where we find out she's actually claustrophobic. Because I figured there would be some important little thing with that, and I was thinking like, well, she can't get infected because the guy died, so eventually it would die down, and plus it would still have to be through fluids. It's not just airborne. But I was thinking like maybe some of the blood like leaked under. I thought that's how it was gonna play out, and then the power shut off, and it's just, oh, she's trapped. And then the people were coming through in the elevator as well, which once the power got back on, they were able to solve that problem, shut the elevator down, sent it downstairs, and then we have the people chasing Jana who all come up, and they have to set up all the stuff like in one room. Is basically like just an exploding, just a room waiting to explode. So Jake kills off all those people, seemingly. Everything seems to be fine. We have Teresa and Xander and her mother, who is still this whole episode like just super pissed off at both of them. And I mentioned it before, like I understand why she's mad, because it's her young daughter having a baby, they are ready to be parents, all this other stuff. But it's like sometimes she would just be getting mad like for no good reason. Like in the last episode where when the guy was sick and he was in the room for like 12 hours or whatever, he was sick overnight, and she was like confronting Xander as if he was just being an idiot, like, you don't know that, like, he might not be sick. And it's like, you know what this virus does. Like, who goes into a room when they're like a part of a gang, they're robbing this place and trying to set it up to make a bunch of money, and he just goes in a room and stays there for 12 hours for no good reason? Like that, sometimes you just can't. Like, she was just confronting Xander for everything just because she was mad at him because he got her daughter pregnant and stuff like that. So sometimes she was just, it was like, most of the time really seemed like it was all rage and like no logic, kind of involved with their sort of interactions. And Xander kind of had enough of that in this episode. And, he gets mad at her and it's like, look, basically he was like, I don't like you and you don't like me, but we kind of need to table all this crap for, my girlfriend and my child so that everything can work out fine. Like, she was mad at them, especially the hospital thing. It was another thing where I was like, I understand needing to be in the hospital. Makes a lot of sense. But she was getting, like, super mad at them. It's like, it's 3 little people. Like, it's not like everyone was going to go with them. It's 2 people. It's 2 young people, one of which is pregnant, and then a middle-aged woman who I'm sure doesn't have, like, random combat experience. And she's, like, getting on their case about going to the hospital, which Xander mentioned, like, where it is people, that's where you go to get, the virus and stuff like that. And it was kind of the same as the other episodes where I thought she was, like, so over the top angry that she'd find any reason to not think about how terrible that could be or how difficult it could be, because she's like, we need to get out of here. It's like, this is even before they solved all the problems. It's like in the middle of the situation. It's like, we got to get out of here. It's like, there's like a dozen people trying to come in and kill you guys. You can't. It's not even remotely the moment to think about getting out when other people are trying to get in, because you can go right past them. So just constant conflict. And then of course we get to the end of the episode. Everything seems to be fine. Random guy gets up. I thought he stabbed her in the neck, and I thought that's why she was gonna die. Because I heard the sound effect they used. I was like, that's definitely like blood coming out. But I thought it was because he stabbed her in the neck, so there's like, obviously there's a ton of blood. And I thought it was just like, oh, she's dead. They're gonna do like the slow death thing because she got, stabbed in the neck. And then even when they showed it, I still thought she got stabbed, because I was like, oh, she got stabbed in the neck. I just thought it was a bunch of blood. And then she's like, he bit me. I was like, oh, she's guaranteed to die from this, and it'll be, a slow, painful death. And of course she, tries to play it off like she's super confident, like, oh, it'll be 48 hours, I'll be right back. And of course, kind of the normal thing we see in TV where the person that constantly argues with the other people, once they're about to die, it's like all of that goes away and it's like super happy and everything, They kind of squash all that crap and it's like, you guys are going to be good parents and I really love you both and stuff like that. And so she's gone, and I don't know if they'll show her die in the next episode. I think that's something that might be a bit interesting if they kind of show maybe Jake, more than anyone else, he'd be the one to come across her. But I don't know. It would be interesting if she survived as well. Like that would be something. And in the next episode, which unfortunately comes out like June 14th, so they're doing some event, I'm sure, on the CW. But the next episode really focuses on Thomas. So they might actually do it where Teresa's mother is like the very first person because she's kind of newly infected. I would assume that her big thing is like, well, if I'm gonna go anywhere, since they brought up the hospital, she might find her way there, and we'll kind of see how that plays out, and she might actually get saved depending on how things play out. But with it being containment, even the preview seems a little bit drastic, where it's like it's supposed to be about hope and stuff with Thomas, and it's like, it still seems pretty crappy, and them trying to get him out, and then they show that where it's like a hopeful scene with Lex and Lammers or Somers, whatever her name is. I think it's Lammers. But they have that scene where she's like, I need you to get him out. And then they do a scene at the end of the promo for the next episode where it's Lex's captain. And he's like, basically, you're done with this. So I'm curious if he's still going to be doing that kind of behind the scenes. Because we still don't know what's going on with the captain and the stuff with Mies and whatever weird little plan they're supposed to be having. And of course, they still don't have the phone. So none of that matters now. He won't be able to contact the captain, or vice versa, where it's like, hey, this is what's happening and what's going on there. So we might actually have a scene where someone calls in, or the captain calls in, and it's like, hey, I need an update or something like that. And then, things kind of fall apart when he realizes who actually has the phone now. And of course, Jana told Jake about that, because when she called Lex, he's like, how are you calling me from this sort of sat phone? So Jake's going to get some info on that. He didn't mention me, so I thought the first thing he would say is like, there was supposed to be a cop that came in, but I haven't seen him. Maybe he had a phone on him, but they didn't bring that up in this episode. But that could come up in the next one. We might just kind of get that where he looks into things. I mean, obviously he's looking into the phone, so if he doesn't instantly come up with the idea himself of who it might be, somehow I don't know what clues he could possibly get. I mean, honestly, I think he'd have to just figure it out. Like, oh, Lex mentioned that there is a cop that was supposed to be there and he never showed up. Maybe he had a phone on him for whatever random reason, and then that leads to this is how he's working with the captain, or the fact that he is working with someone on the outside. So I have to wait for that, but I certainly enjoyed this one. I thought it was a nice, it was definitely, no pun intended, it was definitely a contained episode. I think we had, it was all kind of one area. We actually didn't see really any of the hospital. We didn't have Katie wasn't in this episode, which I thought was interesting because they normally have like all the main characters show up in the episodes, and this was, I think, the first time they've ever had any of the main characters missing, and I'm pretty sure she didn't show up in any of the scenes whatsoever, and I don't believe we saw the hospital at all during this episode. So I thought that was actually kind of interesting. We didn't see Katie, we didn't see Quentin, we didn't see Brady in the hospital either, or even his wife has shown up in pretty much every episode now that I think about it. So this is like the first one where they didn't have every single character actually show up, or at least every single main character show up. So that was interesting. We also got to see kind of the National Guard come into play, so we now know exactly who's going into the sluice and everything like that. And I don't know what Lex was thinking. I mean, I guess in that situation, it was like, he got the phone call from Jana, and things were really bad, and she hangs up and she's screaming, and she beat the crap out of that guy. But like, I'm glad I remembered that scene, because she's fighting with him, and then she was just beating him in the face with the phone. I was like, man, she like destroyed that guy and took him down. But Lex freaked out, and he tried to jump the gate. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking, like turning the power off. Like, that's not gonna bring a bunch of attention. Like, oh, like, who knows how long that specific portion of the fence was, but like, all these lights just stopped flashing. That's not super suspicious. And I love the way they did it too. Like, as soon as he jumped up, it was like, freeze. It was like, oh, well, he's busted. So he's been caught by the National Guard guy, who has a weird thing, like, oh, I did my research on you and all this crap. So he's been busted, but obviously based on the trailer, he does get let out. And I guess he's let go officially. Yeah, he's let go by the police, but he's still going to be, I'm assuming he's going to be going inside the cordon, because they want Thomas so that they can figure out this cure stuff. And I'm assuming with everything that's going to be so focused on Thomas as well as the hospital characters, we'll actually get the answer as to who officially was Patient Zero and where this virus started from, if or if it even started with humans, or who the first human was, and how it kind of transferred. If it was, maybe it was within the hospital, because they have all these weird secrets and stuff. So maybe it started within the hospital. Maybe it's been around for a while, and it wasn't as bad before, and then it just mutated one day, and poof, it's an epidemic. But there's still a lot of questions there, so I'm looking forward to that. We have, whatever's gonna happen with Lex. I'm very curious why they decide to let him out. I guess because that's like his big offense. So it's like you get one big mistake, and then they keep their eye on you. So we'll see how that plays out. We didn't see Leo in this episode, so he might come back into play, especially with Lex trying to get into the court, and Leo might have another way, even though it's totally different now with the National Guard being there. Leo might still find a way to help Lex get on the inside, and just how that might play out, especially since he has Xander in there. If they can still find a way to get in touch, but I don't know. It should be fun. I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode. It might not be the last one. I mentioned that in my last review. I thought that there were only going to be 8 episodes, but I'm assuming there's going to be more. And I mentioned that before. Last time I checked, there were only 8 listed. So this seems like it would go to like 10, possibly 12 episodes, because I feel like there's still some more content. At least to 10 episodes. Because the next one, I feel like if it was the finale, there'd be so much done. So I would assume we're getting at least 3 more episodes. It's just going to go to an even 10 episode thing. But definitely looking forward to it, of course. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. And we have quite a few interesting things going on in this episode. We lost 2 not so important characters. One of which, like I said, I just didn't care. I was like, I hated them so much. It's like, whatever. But with everything that they're doing, especially with Lex getting caught at the end of this episode, I definitely want to know how you guys think that's going to play out with, based on the promo, with them wanting him to get Thomas out. Like, is he going to be trapped inside the cordon for the rest of the series? Like, is that where we're going to end? Like, he's inside during day 13, because we still don't see Jana during the day 13 stuff. We see Teresa. We don't see Xander with her. We see Birdie, although, it's flashing all over the place, so we don't really know if they're, like, actually close to each other in proximity and stuff like that. Katie has the young girl in her arms and stuff like that. So there's still characters that don't show up during the day 13 stuff. But I would love to know where you think, Lex's storyline is going to be headed with, Lamers wanting him to go inside or at least find a way to get Thomas out. I think the simple answer would be, use Jake. But I'm sure he'll try to work his way to get inside so he can, check on Jana. But we'll love to know where you guys think that's going to be headed, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.